Good evening. My name is J.R. Harding. I'm the faculty advisor for the University of Choice at Florida State University. I am excited to introduce today's discussion on going to college and excelling as an individual with a disability. Today's objectives was the University of Choice, introductions, structural and attitudinal barriers in higher education, and then the heart of our presentation, student perspectives in high school and college. But first, who is the University of Choice? It is a mission-driven organization committed to empowering students to see their abilities rather than their disabilities, to promote the disability community, and to foster community and inclusion by connecting those with and without disabilities. This evening we have 6 different student leaders who will guide us through tonight's conversation. But first, a little bit more about myself. In addition to being the faculty advisor at Florida State University for the University of Choice, I also teach at the College of Business Management program, and specifically workforce inclusion activities and a variety of other meaningful impacts at the undergraduate and graduate levels.
Hello, I'm Carly Fulcher. I've been involved with University of Choice since fall 2018. This upcoming fall, I'll start my junior year. I am a string performance student, and I've been the president of University of Choice for the past year.
Hey everyone, my name is Evan Weinstein. I am currently a senior at Florida State right now. I am double majoring in psych and family child sciences, the secretary of University of Choice, and man, I'm excited to be here.
Oh, my bad. Hi, my name is Nora Mark. I'm a junior. I go to FSU. I'm a commercial music major, and I'm a UOC social media coordinator. I'm glad to be a part of this group.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mira Gatanis, and I'm a sophomore at Florida State University. My major is public relations, and I am the UOC treasurer. It's an honor to be here.
Hello, I'm Jessica Dixon. I'm a rising junior, double majoring in neuroscience and statistics. I'm a member of University of Choice, and I'm also a 2020 Barry Goldwater Scholar and an FSU Presidential Scholar.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tyler Brufak. I'm a graduate student entering my 3rd year, and I am in the sociology department and also a member of the University of Choice. So we could introduce everybody. And so we are going to begin our discussion by talking about the structural and attitudinal barriers in higher education. So here at Florida State University, we have approximately 6,500 students who are registered with our Office of Accessibility Services. And if you consider the approximate student population at FSU, that's about 15% of the student population, which is a really big deal. And you know, students with disabilities have made great strides in terms of their educational achievement in recent decades. But that being said, there are still significant social and structural barriers that students with disabilities face, and it hinders their academic progress. One example is the stigmatization of having a disability, which leads to a lot of awkward social encounters that students experience and expect when encountering students, as well as faculty and instructors. In fact, there's an expectation of not only encountering awkwardness with their peers and instructors, but also a perception that instructors and faculty members aren't quite prepared to be accommodating and inclusive for all students with disabilities. So that being said, students with disabilities have been actually quite adaptive. And so they engage in practices such as practical disclosure, which means not freely sharing their disability, but being very strategic about it. and in this way, students have been actually quite resilient um, in the face of adversity. And so through this resilience, they've actually overcome many structural barriers, uh, which makes it quite important for not only prospective students, but also other parties as well, to listen to students' experiences, to understand how we can not only overcome these barriers, but eventually remove these barriers from higher education. Uh, and with that being said, it is time for us to listen to some of these successful students. So again, welcome everybody. We're all very excited to be here. And we're gonna start out by talking about our high school experiences. And so I'm gonna start with our president, Carly. Happy to see you here. So Carly, why don't you tell us about your experience with academic support in high school?
Sure, Tyler. So I attended public, just mainstream school, K through 12. My high school in particular was an arts magnet in my school district, so still public school, but we had these sort of specialized arts programs. Now, I'm a cellist, so I was in the orchestra program through that arts magnet. That was something I found particularly helpful just because, you know, it's a great interest of mine. I enjoyed it a lot, and it was something that was a reason for me to go to school on days when I maybe would have preferred not to, just because things were difficult otherwise. Now, in high school, I never had any sort of formal accommodations that are afforded through the law, such as a 504 plan as an IEP. In fact, I wasn't diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder until I was 17, in my senior year of high school. And of course, you need that kind of documentation to get those accommodations. What I did have that helped a lot is a lot of teachers who were just willing to help me through what I call informal accommodations. Just in school in general, I was pretty strong academically. I didn't have a lot of trouble in that area. So when I was struggling with something else, usually it was just something in the environment or social skills, things like that. They picked up on it, and they didn't necessarily blame me for it because they knew I was a strong student, and they didn't have any reason to suspect I was doing wrong. So, for example, teachers would let me sit in their classrooms during lunch because the cafeteria was too loud for me. You know, I just couldn't take it sitting in there. So I would just eat my lunch in someone's classroom, or I'd practice in the art school or something. And that helped me. Another thing is that I actually have a formal accommodation for now through OAS at FSU, is extended deadlines on assignments. I wouldn't always turn things in on time. Sometimes it was just because I got deadlines confused, I didn't do the work. Sometimes it actually was because I wasn't sure how to approach the teacher to turn it in if they didn't have some kind of standardized procedure. And at the time I was in high school, we were transitioning from a lot of paper assignments, worksheets, and things to Chromebooks, because my junior year of high school was the first year my school district got Chromebooks as a trial thing, and that was being integrated. It was just confusing for me, and I wasn't always sure to approach them. So sometimes they would approach me first. Sometimes they'd just be very lenient about letting me turn things in, because, and whenever that happened, it was unusual for me because I was a good student. So they had more patience with me, I suppose. And those sorts of things I found helpful.
That's quite exceptional. So it seems like you didn't really have such a formal accommodation, but like you had a lot of informal support, and that was pretty important to you in regards to your high school experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think obviously we all know how important like family and friends can be. And I want to go to you, Evan, because you seem to hold that very highly, and you thought that was really important for your high school experiences. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've always so in high school I did value the activities that I did. I had friends in those activities. I a lot of my time in high school I focused into marching band and also high school swim, and also the swim club that I used to belong to back home. So I have done many different activities that did help shape like my relationships in high school, and not just that, but also part of who I am today. You know, a guy who likes to listen to music, make music, who likes to swim, exercise, move around, and and also more likely to socialize with others now than than probably when I was in high school or even lower than that.
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely see the merit in, outside organizations. We are an outside organization, so obviously
Mhm.
we think of those very highly, and we think those are very important. That being
Mhm.
said, obviously accommodations are here for a reason, and it's because education is set up in such a way so that
Mhm.
students with quote unquote disabilities um, need extra time to do things or extra supports. So I'm going to turn to you, Mira. Tell us about your experience with accommodations.
So my experience with accommodations, I was mainstreamed through K through 12 education, so that means I worked alongside my able-bodied peers. And I also had an individual education plan, which stated my accommodations, and it kind of changed year after year. As I met with teachers and said, oh, I'll need extra time on certain assignments, or I'm definitely going to need this in large print, or talking about different types of assistive technologies that have been innovative in helping me be successful. Um, in regards to my high school accommodations, we actually had a course called Unique Skills, which was a course that you added to your schedule and you took it alongside whatever other courses you were taking, and it taught skills like time management and how to make sure you meet deadlines. But it was also a course that you could use to take exams, use extra time on exams, on homework, work with your teacher or your peers to make sure that you had everything set in place, which was a really wonderful and very helpful tool. It was more like a study hall. So that's how it was approached in high school. In college, we have the Office of Accessibility Services, which is a little bit different, but also takes some of those same goals and ideas from high school to the college kind of atmosphere. But it's a lot more organized and strategic. In high school, it was more like one classroom where you worked with individuals. There's a whole team and staff, and it definitely feel very supported at Florida State and with the Office of Accessibility Services.
Yeah, I think our Office of Accessibility Services is a gift for us because for what resources they have, they do an incredible job. Quick show of hands, which of you had formal accommodations in high school? If you're willing to share. If not, that's totally okay. Okay, so while many of us receive accommodations, not all. And so they are quite important, but they're obviously not the say all. Obviously, things like family support and social support generally are really important. So let's turn to college experiences. And I want to come back to you, Carly. Um, so, how was adjusting to college, given that you didn't have informal accommodations? Was that a challenge or was that more of a smooth process?
So the college transition was different for me. I at the time I was always pretty sure I was going to go to college just because I knew I would be academically qualified. I suppose that's the key. The concern was more of whether I'd actually be able to live on my own and take care of myself. So at the time I was working with an educational psychologist actually who in fact is an FSU alumni. It was kind of an unusual circumstance. And I ended up picking FSU mostly for the music department for the program I wanted, but she encouraged me to go because she herself knew how OAS worked, how good they were compared to other programs in the country, and she knew it would be a good fit for me. So it was helpful to have that feedback going in. Now, as far as formal accommodations, I registered with OAS. Actually, I had a meeting with the coordinator before I was ever at school at the recommendation of my psychologist at the time. This was all just it was part of the process, because she knew the kind of documentation that was required, and because I had that support going in, it was helpful. Because my mom and I had not really dealt with the formal accommodation process before, but with that helped. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you encounter any challenges with instructors?
Sure, yeah. So as far as the accommodations being implemented, that's where the trouble comes. working with OAS has been very easy and everything. It's just certain instructors. And on the whole, I've been pretty lucky. I really have few negative experiences to speak of. I think it's a lot of it is just being a music student. It's different because the College of Music is a smaller just kind of thing that exists at FSU. You know, we have 40 some odd thousand students. It's a huge school, but the College of Music itself is only about 1,100. Smaller than my high school, and in fact the class sizes are comparable to my high school. We have between, it's like 16 to 30 is the average class size. It's small classes, not huge lecture halls or anything. And actually all of the challenges I've encountered with instructors have been outside of that. Part of that may be because I don't tend to use accommodations as much for my music courses, but a couple gen eds, for example, I took an algebra class my freshman year, and the instructor was just difficult to deal with. He didn't really understand what any of it was, and I had to get OAS involved, and they helped. But like one thing, for example, was the note taking. You know, when you have a note taker assigned, it's supposed to be an anonymous process. It's all done online. They don't know who you are, and you don't know who they are. But the instructor just didn't quite get that. And there was one day in class where he called me up and said I needed a note taker, and with anyone volunteered, he like connected me with this other girl, which is, it's not how the process is supposed to work. Now that's something that doesn't bother me so much because I don't care if they know who I am. But you know, some people would like to have their privacy respected more. And really the main reason it bothered me is just because it didn't follow the procedure more than anything. But you know, you'll encounter that. And then this past year I took a philosophy class, another gen ed, where the instructor questioned, I mentioned earlier I have like extended time on assignments. So he didn't understand why I needed that. And one of the most frustrating things for me, he questioned my integrity on it. He was like, well, other students don't need this. Why do you need it? Why do you think you're special? You know, and why do I have to do this? You know, sometimes you'll encounter those. But for the most part, professors are pretty understanding, and when they're not, OAS can get involved and help.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I'm sorry you had those challenges, but I'm glad OAS was there to help. So now I'm going to turn to you, Jessica, real quick, because we haven't heard from you yet. So obviously, like a lot of students with disabilities have those kinds of challenges. If you've had any of those challenges, tell us how that went and whether or not you feel like you were prepared for that experience.
So I actually have not had a challenge with the implementation of my accommodations in college. And I feel like that is one because the faculty and staff at FSU have been very accommodating. But also, I feel like my experiences in high school learning how to self-advocate have helped me learn how to self-advocate in these scenarios. I normally perform pretty well in school, which I think can also help my case with my professors. And I have a pretty flexible implementation plan for my accommodations. So when I was in high school, my mom, who has a background in education, like knew my rights, but had me lead the 504 plan meetings. So I learned how to speak to educators about how I need my accommodations put in place. And that was really helpful during that transition to college because I had the skills necessary to go into those office hours and explain to my professors. I'm also a bit fortunate because I have Tourette's syndrome, but it's not always active. So I don't normally need the accommodations, which makes professors understanding when I do need them, especially because my tics physically present themselves.
Mm-hmm. So that's really eerily similar to your experience, Mira. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience?
I'd say that definitely in regards to the self-advocacy part, because you kind of, I had wonderful parents who worked with me basically since, elementary school to work on those self-advocacy skills, that I was able to communicate with educators and with my professors and teachers what my accommodations were. But there were a couple of instances where I had to sit down and explain my accommodation, because I know Carly was saying sometimes people would question why you would need extra time. I had a professor in my 9th grade year state that you're smart, so you won't need to use your accommodations. So I had to have a sit down conversation with my guidance counselor and with her and my mom to discuss that my accommodations are tools for me to be successful in your environment. They're not necessarily they're not related in any way, shape, or form to my intelligence. They're to help me perform better. So I had to sit and explain that. And there were a couple of instances in college where I had a little bit of problems explaining my accommodations. It was in a foreign language course, and it was problems with the extra time because it was an auditory exam, but he would also have to write the examples on the board, but I was having trouble reading them from the board because it was a foreign language. It was Chinese because the characters were hard to read. So, but we sat down and worked it out, and I ended up performing very well in the class. So it's all about communication, I think, is super important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us we're very well prepared to do that from a young age. But at the same time, like obviously, high schools don't have the resources, and they just don't seem to view it the same way as college. You know, like college seems to be more friendly towards accessibility and understanding these accommodations as tools for us to succeed when needed. So I haven't heard from you yet, Nora. So tell us about how your college experiences with accommodations has compared to your high school experiences.
So my experience, I had a 504 plan, and it did help me. My accommodations were extended time and separate setting. I did find though that once I did transition to college, all I really needed was the extended time because I realized that, well, and the College of Music is very small and has very small classrooms, like Carly said. So I noticed that there wasn't much distraction since there was only maybe 20 kids in my class, where in high school, I did have a lot more, and it was just a little bit more distracting since it was not like a group of like-minded people. Everyone is serious about music, so I was able to not be as distracted. But yes, I did learn that in college, it's very important to self-advocate. And I think that's what I've been learning through the process is now I think the self-advocation part was that next level of understanding how to work with my disability and how others might as well have the same experience. I think more as I was in high school, I was very afraid of people and what their perceptions were. I went to a very big high school in North Carolina that was public. And I remember they didn't really have a concrete set way of arranging accommodations. I was able to show my school that I needed them, and they were able to provide, but it was a very awkward encounter between my friends and people in class. They're like, oh, why are you going to another classroom? Like, why can't you stay here? And I did have some friends say, oh, I wish if I had accommodations, like I'd probably do so much better on my tests. And I was like, it's not like that. It's not similar. Like Mira said, it's not connected to your intelligence. It's really tools that are needed to make you a better student. And so that's what I've learned in college now is to, you know, make it clear about my accommodations and why I need them to be a successful student.
That was really well said. Show of hands, do you like accommodations in college better or in high school better?
College better.
Oh yeah, baby. All right, we got a winner.
I was gonna be the only one raising my hand.
all jokes aside, you know, we've learned so far through this discussion just how important accommodations are and how important it is to kind of go through the process of learning how to do that in high school and how that prepares you for college. Because believe it or not, like getting here is obviously really impressive for all of you panelists, but there are still plenty of challenges in college as well. And so we're gonna wrap up here and kind of review what we've been discussing so far and then provide a couple of tips before we leave our audience. So again, in review, like organizational support is really important. And I guess we're a little biased because we are an organization and we're here. But that being said, it's just another source of social support. All our panelists have talked about their friends, their extracurriculars, their families, and how that has shaped their experiences with education and advocating for themselves. And so we're gonna just jump over here to our keys to success. And I'm not gonna call on anybody. Y'all are just kind of gonna jump on these points if they speak out to you. So let's go to high school keys to success first. And whoever wants to say something about a point, just shout it out.
I'd definitely say that for high school, compassion is something that's really important because not all of your teachers and even your peers aren't necessarily going to understand what your disability is or why you will need these accommodations. So it's important to kind of own your story and be able to talk about it and be compassionate and understand that these individuals have not walked in your shoes. So it's important to explain why you need your accommodations from a point of view of softness and of kindness.
I'd like to, that's a great point, Mira. I would like to speak to the second piece of advice where you own your story. I feel that as individuals with disabilities, we face additional obstacles and we need to find some way in order to move forward, but use our struggles in a productive manner. So I would advise owning your story. So in your essays, when you need to provide a different perspective, when you're applying to college, it's a really good thing to talk about. When you are in a class discussion and you feel comfortable, you can speak from that place of experience. So you can use your story and your struggles to your advantage in order to help overcome the obstacles that come with having a disability.
Well said.
I agree with Mira's point on that. So I think what stood out to me was college, number one, having an open mind. And I can say this from experience, and as I'm sure many of you guys have experienced this also, you go into freshman year of college with an open mind, and not everyone's mind may be as open as others. My mind was pretty open, though, I can say, but to get to the point, it's you want to be open with it's not just a matter of being open with yourself, but also being open with others. So getting the opportunity to discover who you are and also learn from others. And I feel like I've had the opportunity to do a lot of that while in college, and that's been one of the great things about being in college. And there are people with disabilities or of other abilities who may have not always had the ability to be as open-minded, or it may be hard for some people to get out of their bubble, but
Well said.
there are ways of doing that.
Such wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I already spoke.
Oh, I already spoke as well, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just wanted to jump to the college one. The fourth, prepare for the challenge, because the transition from high school to college is definitely going to be really hard. It takes a lot of determination and passion to put yourself out there and realize that you can be successful. And it's important to realize that there are all sorts of people out there who've got your back, creating a network. You've got friends, it could be friends, family, it could be organizations such as like the University of Choice, but there's also VR, and the Division of Blind Services has been really incredible for me since I have a visual impairment. So it's important to prepare for the challenge and also make sure that you have your team set up who will help you be successful in both high school and college.
I would like to jump in on the know your strengths. Personally, I think knowing your strength means you're learning about yourself, obviously, which I like to agree with about Evan's point, that's the part about college is learning more about who you are as an individual and how you work with others. And knowing your strengths, like knowing what you're good at, can help you also with your confidence. I'm thankful that I'm a part of this group because this group has really encouraged me to go above and beyond with my passions and, exploring new things, learning from you guys as my colleagues and friends, and knowing your strength as like what you enjoy also, like knowing your passions, knowing what you are interested in as your career and maybe like a hobby, and just finding a good group of people that can encourage you as well.
That was incredibly powerful and sweet. I think I'm gonna cry. But on that, I think we should finish and say thank you to our listeners and viewers, those of you who have tuned in. We have offered our contact information, so if anyone's story kind of spoke out to you, if you have any questions, if you'd like to reach out, please feel free to email us through any of these emails. It will be provided, or the PowerPoint will be provided as well, so you don't have to furiously jot it down right now. And on that note, I think we should all say goodbye and thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you, panelists,
Bye.
for being here. Lovely to see you all
Thank you.
again.
Well, I'd like to say, as we say goodnight to all, to Tyler and to Mira, to Jessica, to Evan, to Nora, to Carly, you guys rock. You make being an instructor at FSU exciting. You make us proud, and I think you have demonstrated to the state of Florida and all of Family Cafe, right, why students with disabilities can get into a college of choice, can excel at their college of choice, and make a difference interpersonally and professionally in their degree of choice. So thank you so much, and I hope we have inspired others to know that they too can go to their college of choice and do as well as the 6 of you. So thank you very much, guys.